Only in Kentucky can a single county claim a town that served as the seat for three different counties, an underwater city flooded to create a national recreation area, and a towering maximum security prison known as the Castle on the Cumberland. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Lyon County. For thousands of years, this area was home to Native American cultures. Modern archaeological digs at sites like Tinsley Hill have uncovered artifacts and earthwork spanning from the Paleo-Indian to the Mississippian periods. But Euro-American settlement really began in earnest, at least in the 1790s, driven by one of the most colorful and combative founding fathers in American history. In 1799, Congressman Matthew Lyon arrived from Vermont and established a homestead near the Cumberland River. Matthew Lyon was a fiery Irish immigrant who had famously engaged in a physical brawl on the floor of the U.S. Congress. He was later jailed under the Sedition Act for insulting President John Adams, but he actually won his re-election campaign while sitting inside a prison cell. Looking for a fresh start, he packed up his family, moved to the western frontier, and founded the river town of Eddyville. Lyon County was formed in 1854. It was named for Matthew's son, Colonel Crittenden Lyon, who also served as a prominent Kentucky congressman. Eddyville was situated on a sharp bend in the river known for its swirling currents, which inspired the name. Now, because of the shifting county lines over the years, Eddyville holds a remarkably rare distinction in state history. It's the only city in Kentucky to have served as the county seat for three entirely separate counties: Livingston, Caldwell, and finally Lyon. Before the Civil War, the county was the site of a world-changing industrial breakthrough. In 1846, an inventor named William Kelly purchased the Suwanee ironworks near Eddyville. While watching his blast furnaces, Kelly noticed that blowing cold air directly onto molten iron actually made the metal hotter by burning off the excess carbon. This pneumatic process allowed for the mass production of high-quality steel. Kelly perfected his method in Lyon County years before the British inventor Henry Bessemer patented the exact same process. While Bessemer went down in history and Kelly eventually went bankrupt, the foundation of the global steel industry was laid on the banks of the Ohio River. When the Civil War erupted in 1861, Lyon County found itself in a precarious position. The county was officially Union territory, but harbored deep Southern sympathies, sending local men to fight for both sides of the conflict. In October of the first year of the war, a Union force of roughly 300 soldiers routed a band of 160 Confederate cavalry at the Saratoga Springs Methodist Church. That small frame church, originally built in 1810 and reconstructed in 1859, survived the battle. Today it still stands as a quiet riverside landmark, complete with a visible bullet hole in its clapboard siding. One of the more prominent Confederate figures to emerge from the county was General Lyon Lyon. After the war, General Lyon returned home and wielded his political influence to secure one of the county's defining and most imposing structures. Looking at the architectural and systemic evolution of the American penal system, the late 19th century brought a desperate need for reform. In the 1880s, Kentucky's prison system was in a state of complete disrepair. An 1875 study revealed that 20% of the inmates in the Frankfort Penitentiary had pneumonia, and 75% suffered from scurvy, living in squalor and open sewage. Seeking to alleviate the severe overcrowding and shift toward a more structured facility, the state appointed commissioners, including General Lyon, to find a location for the new branch penitentiary. They chose a high, commanding bluff overlooking the Cumberland River in Eddyville. Known today as the Castle on the Cumberland, the Kentucky State Penitentiary was constructed between 1884 and 1890. It was built using massive limestone blocks, actually quarried directly from the riverbanks by the inmates themselves, working alongside skilled Italian stonemasons. Designed with imposing medieval-style architecture, it remains Kentucky's oldest active prison and its only supermax facility. The penitentiary houses the state's male death row and has a dark, storied history. Prior to 1936, some executions in Kentucky were handled publicly by local counties, but the state eventually centralized electrocutions strictly to the Eddyville facility. The prison has also seen its share of chaos. On one summer night in June 1988, 8 convicts, including 3 murderers on death row, managed to saw through their cell bars, navigate through the cell house doors, and escape by scaling down a 30-foot wall using an electrical extension cord. The breakout triggered a massive multi-state manhunt that gripped the region in fear, and while authorities managed to track down and recapture 5 of the escapees within 1 week, including 2 who engaged in a desperate shootout with state police, the remaining 3 slipped across the border into Tennessee. Hiding out in a lakeside resort community, the trio tragically murdered an elderly couple before they were finally apprehended a month later and then sent back to death row. The 20th century fundamentally reshaped Lyon County's map and its very existence. As mentioned in my Logan County video in the 1940s and 1950s, the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers launched monumental projects to dam the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. The goal was to control devastating regional flooding and generate massive amounts of hydroelectrical power. These engineering feats created Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley. However, the rising waters threatened to completely swallow the historic river towns of the original Eddyville and Catawba. Panic sets in as residents face the reality of losing their homes, their businesses, and their generational history to the impending floodwaters. The situation bred widespread anger and resentment toward the federal government. But the crisis was resolved by a man named Lee S. Jones. Jones was a native of Lyon County who had moved to Louisville. He made his fortune as a highly successful tax lawyer, and he never forgot his roots. Hearing of his hometown's plight, Jones purchased large tracts of farmland in the nearby Fairview community, which sat on the much higher ground. He then approached the Eddyville City Council with an unprecedented offer. Anyone who owned land or business in the town slated to be flooded would receive a free lot in his newly platted site. The residents accepted the offer on August 28, 1959. The new site hosted Dedication and Free Deed Day. A large crowd gathered in an open field as Jones handed out over 60 free residential deeds, starting with Boyce and Lillian Yates. The relocation saved the community. The old towns were abandoned and eventually submerged beneath Lake Barkley. During winter pool, when the lake levels drop, you can still see the ghostly remnants of the old streets, sidewalks, and foundations breaking the surface of the water. The massive tract of land trapped between these two newly formed reservoirs was transformed into the Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area in 1963. And while the creation of this 170,000-acre peninsula forced hundreds of families off their ancestral farms, it ultimately brought crucial tourism, camping, and federal management to the southern half of the county. As the county adapted, its smaller communities retained their distinct, often quirky histories. Catawba, founded in 1866 by former Ohio Governor Charles Anderson, was also relocated to higher ground. Local lore suggests the name derives from a Cherokee word for beautiful or city in the woods. Sewanee was the early industrial settlement where William Kelly perfected his steel process that we talked about. Then there's the tiny community of Confederate. According to local stories, the town was originally called Gresham after a local general store owner. When the settlement finally needed an official post office, a traveling salesman suggested the name Confederate to honor the local men who had fought for the South. The name was adopted, and the nearby burial ground is still known as the Confederate Cemetery. The creation of the lakes shifted the economic foundation of Lyon County. While traditional agriculture remained a cornerstone, modern farmers here still produce high yields of soybeans, corn, and hay, while supporting 4,000 head of cattle. But the river bottoms gave way to marinas, waterfront resorts, and a thriving hospitality industry. In 1988, hoping to capitalize on the steady stream of lake tourists, three brothers named Bob, Darrell, and Ben Gent purchased land in Eddyville and built the West Kentucky Outlet Mall. It opened with 10 stores and quickly expanded to nearly 50, bringing an unprecedented surge of retail revenue and progress to the small town. While the mall eventually suffered severe economic decline with the rise of online shopping, the local tourism sector adapted again with attractions like the Venture River Water Park, which continues to draw families from across the region. The resilience of Lyon County has been tested by more than just floodwaters. In December 2021, a devastating EF4 tornado ripped through western Kentucky, destroying hundreds of homes and businesses in Eddyville and the surrounding areas. Just a few years later, in May 2024, an EF3 tornado touched down and caused further damage to the exact same recovering communities. Now, as we know, in Kentucky, high school basketball is a religion. For nearly 70 years, the state's all-time scoring record was held by King Kelly Coleman, a legendary figure from the 1950s. That record was considered virtually unbreakable. But in 2023, a young man from Lyon County High School named Travis Perry captivated the state. Playing under the intense pressure of media spotlights and packed gyms, Perry shattered Coleman's historic record. He finished his high school career with an astonishing 5,481 points before committing to play for the University of Kentucky. In a rural county of fewer than 9,000 people, Perry's achievement stands as a monumental point of modern cultural pride, proving that greatness can emerge from the smallest of towns really anywhere. So, that's Lyon County. What'd I get wrong this time?